Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar, Google Display 101, Clearing the Path to Your First Successful Campaign. We're so excited to have you join us today and hear some expert Google Display tips. WordStream has partnered with LocaliQ to deliver results-focused, technology-backed marketing services to help local businesses unlock measurable business growth. And before we get started, just a few logistics that we wanted to go over. So the webinar is going to be recorded and you should receive the materials in your inbox in the next 24 to 48 hours. At the end of the presentation, we'll have time for questions. So please submit your questions for the Q&A segment in the chat feature and we'll get to them at the end. Without further ado, I'll pass things off to our expert presenters.
Thank you, Stephanie. Hi, everyone. My name is Susie. Super excited to be here today. I'm a digital marketing associate over here at WordStream. What I do is I work with a variety of clients across different verticals, both agency and advertiser, just talking with them all day about PPC account optimization. So that can be across Google, Bing, and Facebook, really a little bit of everything.
Hi guys, my name is Kyle. I am a team lead over on WordStream's professional services team with Susie. As one of the senior members on the team, I like to take a look at accounts and how they can really have a cross-platform approach, especially across Google Search and Google Display, to really deliver great results for our clients.
All right, awesome. So before we kind of dig into the nuts and bolts of this webinar, we first wanted to start off with the why. Why are we here today? Why Google Display? So we're going to kick things off with that. Now, before we even get into the wonderful world of display, I think we first need to demystify what it even is. When we talk about Google Display ads, what we mean is image ads placed over a huge network of sites, over 2 million sites to be exact. And this results in a total of up to 1 trillion eligible impressions every month. Some examples of sites that use image ads are things like YouTube, Gmail, news and entertainment sites, blogs, apps, and really anything in between. That's right, it's not just eligible to Google's platforms and sites. So display is a great way to get your ads out there and surfing the web, showing beyond the search results page and creeping up on your audience's favorite games or online stores. For instance, have you ever been looking up the weather or a recipe and you see those pesky ads around the page? Yep, that's the display network in action. Whether you're an agency looking to increase a client's brand awareness or an advertising looking to up your reach, the display network is a great thing to leverage.
So let's go over a little bit of the benefits of utilizing the display network as part of your advertising. First, it's an excellent ad network for brand awareness. As Susie mentioned, there are trillions of eligible impressions each month. And so having all of that kind of at your fingertips, you get to decide who you want to see your ads, where you want to see your ads. The options are almost limitless. Next, if we're concerned about cost, display network is very inexpensive as an average cost per click. Compared to search, it's a significantly lower average cost per click, and it's a great way to really stretch a small budget to be both seen by a lot of users as well as generating a lot of traffic to your site. Additionally, it allows you to interact and re-engage with your relevant audiences in between searches. The search network is a great platform for us to capture a user's attention as they're typing in a specific search term, but we need to make sure that we're staying on top of things in between some of those searches, and this is a perfect opportunity for the display network. And additionally, you're able to use compelling creative visuals in order to get your message across and entice your users to click on your ads. So where does the display network differ from search other than just different ad formats? So first, go in with the right expectations. The display network does have a lower click-through rate and conversion rate compared to search. Again, those search terms, you're able to identify a very clear intent based on what your users are searching for. With display, it's slightly more passive. Users aren't actively typing in search terms, so the expectation is, hey, maybe it's just not the right time for them to be clicking on that ad. So the expectation is a slightly lower click-through rate, and that's okay. And again, that audience-based targeting doesn't allow you to directly address a user's intent exactly like that search campaign keywords can. But it is a good time to, again, interact with users in between some of those different searches to stay top of mind. And a little bit of a caveat, of a warning. Display is a very useful tool, but if you set up a campaign that is unfocused with its targeting, it can lead to you spending your budget very quickly. Again, those trillions of impressions monthly, there are definitely going to be clicks coming from there. So our goal today is to kind of set you guys up for success and properly set either your first campaign on the display network up or optimize some of your different campaigns that you've been running.
All right, so now you might be thinking, well, Susie, Kyle, that all sounds great. How do I get started? So let's dig into that. Let's stop thinking about it, just do it. So we know whenever we first create a campaign in Google, it now prompts us to select a goal. One thing to note is these goals, while at times helpful, are completely optional and not necessary for the standard campaign we're walking through today. So in this instance, we'll continue without a goal. You'll next want to choose your campaign type, which in this case will of course select display. And we'll be walking you through a standard campaign setup as you see selected here. The final initial setup step is to name your campaign, of course, which we encourage something easy for you to personally reference and recall. Then choose which locations and languages you'd like to target, as well as bidding strategy, which we'll get into that later. Now, there are a few additional settings you want to click into when you're creating display campaigns. This is where you could set up an ad schedule, which helps you eliminate certain days or times where you may see unwanted spend. Next, you'll see you can exclude or adjust bids on mobile, tablet, or computer devices. Additionally, you can choose to select some content exclusions to immediately rule out sites with certain types of sensitive material. Now, you may have noticed on the last slide, one of the very first options in advanced display settings is also frequency management. Now, this deserves its own slide because it's a little known secret that you can actually limit how often you're showing to the same person. So yes, that company or brand that's bombarding you with the same ad at every turn, and I know we all have that one, yeah, they could have spared you from that if they had been smart enough to utilize frequency management. Essentially, frequency management is personalizing how Google will rotate through your ads within your ad groups. You can manage the number of impressions per user per day, per week, per month by either the whole campaign, ad group, or even the ad.
So as stated earlier, one of the benefits of using display advertising is that the average cost per click is significantly lower compared to search campaigns. So each industry is going to have its own respective ranges of cost per click, though across all industries, WordStream's observed that for the 2019 year, the average cost per click on search campaigns were around $2.70, whereas the average cost per click on display network campaigns was only 63 cents. So you're seeing some of those different average cost per click across different industries. So again, this is where it can be very inexpensive in relation to search campaigns. So when we're looking at our bidding options and selecting a different bid strategy, there are some things that are slightly different on display compared to search. The biggest example is the impression-based bidding strategy. So Google Display Ads will be able to utilize smart bidding strategies such as target CPA, target ROAS, as well as max conversions. There will be a click-based automated bidding strategy, maximize clicks, but that last one that you're seeing on screen, the viewable CPM. So CPM stands for cost per thousand impressions. And so if you are focused on something like brand awareness, where getting clicks to your website may not necessarily be of the utmost importance, you just want to be seen by all these different users, using a cost per impression based bidding strategy allows you to focus more on just being seen as opposed to, again, driving traffic. So you're not paying for clicks, you're paying for views. And then over on the manual bidding side, we've got our longstanding click-based bidding strategies, manual cost per click, as well as enhanced cost per click. So as a best practice, what you should be looking to do when deciding what bidding strategy you should be using is to pair your bidding strategies with where your intended audiences are in that buying cycle. So if we're looking at that top of funnel traffic, those who may not have ever interacted with your business before, you're using some simple targeting that, again, you just want your ad to be seen, this is where using an impression-based bidding strategy can be useful. Additionally, if you would prefer to only pay for clicks, using a click-based bidding strategy absolutely makes sense. If you're doing so for your top of funnel traffic, I would recommend using a slightly lower bid as compared to some of the mid and bottom of funnel traffic. Going further down the funnel, for that mid-funnel traffic, I do recommend click-based bidding strategies more so than either smart bidding or impression-based bidding. If they're not yet down towards that bottom of funnel, we may not have all of those data points for smart bidding to truly optimize for those conversions. And something that we're not going to be touching too much on this webinar, since this is more of a 101. There is a difference how Google attributes conversions. That display sometimes doesn't get as much credit as it should, which is why for those mid-funnel conversions, I do recommend click-based more than smart bidding. For that bottom of funnel users, this is where I would recommend using smart bidding, since they are that much more closer to making that purchase, to signing up, to taking your offer, in that conversion-based algorithm that Google uses can be very useful. Or if you are looking to control costs as opposed to using smart bidding, continuing with using a click-based bidding strategy always can make sense. In regards to your budget, because of all of the available impressions and clicks that are available on the display network, you need to ensure that your budget is large enough to accommodate those volume of clicks. A good rule of thumb for search is to accommodate at least 10 clicks per day, and I would recommend doing that as a minimum for the display network as well. With the lower conversion rate that the display network does have, being able to accommodate more clicks per day is definitely recommended. So let's start discussing all of the different targeting options that we have available on the display network. As we stated earlier, this isn't search campaigns. Keywords aren't being typed in at this time. So we want to make sure that we are targeting the appropriate demographics, behaviors, and interests that are most relevant to our target audience. So there are two different types of targeting settings that we could be utilizing. One of those is audience targeting, which again is based off of different behaviors, interests, browsing habits that our intended audiences are displaying. The other is content-based targeting, where instead of trying to match up to users based off of who they are or what they've recently been searching for, we're instead trying to focus on where our ads are showing, what type of content is on page, what types of websites and mobile apps are available. They're very different, and we're going to be able to cover today all of those different options. So let's start first under audience targeting, which the first one is going to be detailed demographics. So these are going to be advanced demographics that go beyond the standard age, gender, and income that identify different characteristics about a user. These will include parental status, homeowner status, marital status, education. These go a little bit beyond, again, just age and gender, and they allow us to match up to a user, not necessarily based on browsing habits, but just what does Google know about our users? The next is affinity audiences. So affinity audiences are based off of long-standing interest and habits that a user has exhibited over a long period of time. And so as you're seeing on some of the images included, we could be targeting people based off of those who are outdoor enthusiasts, those who are fitness enthusiasts. They're not necessarily based off of people who may have a buying intent at this time, but they've exhibited different behaviors that show that they fall under these long-standing interests. So it could be a useful data point for us to target a certain type of audience. The next audience is something that I utilize very frequently with my clients, is in-market audiences. This is based off of what users are actively researching, as well as whom Google believes are likely to make a purchase on a product or sign up for a particular service. And so Google will have a list of pre-selected options that will be available across a wide variety of interests and services. And there is a pretty heavy recency bias. If a user is frequently searching for terms over a short period of time recently, they'll fall under one of these respective in-market audiences. If after a certain period of time a user stops making or stops exhibiting some of those different behaviors, for instance, if they've already made the purchase or if they're no longer interested, after a period of time, Google will simply remove them from that particular in-market audience segment. Something slightly adjacent to in-market audiences are life events. As opposed to active research or something that Google believes a user is likely to make a purchase, this is based off of recent happenings in a user's life. So if someone has recently gotten married, recently started a new job, recently moved, these are different targeting options that we could be using to match up to potential customers on the display network. These life events are can be thought of as something a little bit more detailed than a detailed demographic, since it's a more recent event, but they're slightly different from an in-market audience since they don't specifically imply a purchase intent. So as Susie mentioned earlier, most people are familiar with the display network, with ads that are following them around wherever they are going across the internet and on their phone. So this is going to be referred to as remarketing. It's based off of lists for people who have previously interacted with our website or our company in some way. Typically, there's a minimum of 100 unique users for each of these different remarketing lists, but there is not a limit to any one list size. As long as it's over 100, you could also be matching up to 100,000. Ideally, you'd be segmenting those lists into smaller list sizes to better match a remarketing list to your messaging. A little bit closer than remarketing is going to be customer match. This again is people who have previously interacted with your website or your business, but it's those users who you already have some level of contact info. This can be exported from your CRM platform, or if you have simply a list of emails, phone numbers, names, zip codes, these can be uploaded into Google. It's anonymized, so Google is not going to do anything with this data other than build your list and try to match up to users who you've already captured lead info for. The recommended list size is 1,000 contacts, as Google may not be able to match an uploaded contact info to a user for every single upload. So recommended again is that minimum 1,000. The larger, the better. And finally, going under similar audiences, these are lookalike audiences that are automatically created and are based off of either your remarketing lists or your customer match. These lookalike audiences are people who don't fall under their respective list, but exhibit similar behaviors, demographics, and interests that instead of us trying to build out a new list from scratch, we're finding users who are most closely related to our original list. And finally, the last audience target that we're going to go over is custom audiences. And so custom audiences are incredibly useful for when we are trying to target someone who's a little bit too niche for what Google's audience targeting options have readily available for us. If we don't have a remarketing list yet, or what we're looking for can't be found under a specific affinity list or in-market audience, we can go through and create a custom audience based off of either recent browsing habits, recent searches that they've done on Google, or different purchase intents that they may have exhibited, or different websites that they've been visiting. We can add all of this to create a custom audience that we have a little bit more control over, that Google just may not have as much data on for their pre-selectable options.
So similar to how you can target who you want to show to, you can also target where you want to show to, hence content targeting. The first type of content targeting option is the display network keywords, which is where you choose keywords to add to your display ad group that you imagine could appear on websites where your customers might browse. Let's say, for example, I'm running a display ad for a sports drink like we see here with this ad promoting refreshing drinks. So maybe I'd add in keywords like running as my content targeting because I'm betting that my ideal customer consumes content about running or athleisure activities. This is a great way to help ensure you're only showing on relevant pages by pinpointing what type of words or quote unquote content you'd like to be on the pages that your ad is also on. One last note about this type of targeting is to bear in mind that unlike search network keywords, display network keywords are based on page content, not users' interests or searches. So you'll want to treat it as such, meaning you don't want too many display keywords in because the odds of a page having all those keywords on them would get slimmer and slimmer, which can limit your display campaign performance. You definitely want to keep in to a few main terms that you deem most important and most likely to be on the actual page that your user would be on. But if you're looking to target based on user interest rather than page content, then try the custom search intent audiences that Kyle just referenced. Unlike the display network keywords, another type of content targeting is managed placements, which gives you a bit more control by choosing what actual page you will show on versus just what type of words are on the page. You can use content targeting by placements to specifically choose what websites, videos, channels, apps, and app categories that are part of Google's YouTube and display network where you'd like to show your ads. Unlike other targeting methods where your ads are placed on sites automatically for you, like keyword targeting or topic targeting, which we'll get to next, you select the placements yourself. I know I just promised we get into topic targeting next, so here we go. Last but not least, for content targeting, we have the option to choose manage topics, or in other words, choose to show on pages that have certain quote unquote types of content or target content and topics. Let's use that sports drink example again. I might choose to show on pages that fall into one of the subcategories under food and drink because those websites continuously put on content that relates to drinks. I'm selling a sports drink and therefore want to show to those interested in drinks, and I can do that by always putting my ad on pages that discuss drinks. Keep in mind that topic targeting allows your ads to be eligible to appear on any pages on the Google Display Network that have content related to your selected topics. So as content across the web changes over time, the pages on which your ads would appear can change with it. And additionally, it's not quite as specific as display keyword or managed placement targeting because you're selecting website categories and not necessarily one specific website or page with a certain word. This is helpful if you're an agency serving multiple different accounts and you're unsure of what pages your clients' users might be looking at, or if you're an advertiser looking for more reach but don't want to narrow your campaign too much.
Cool. Now that Susie has finished describing all of the content-based targeting, let's take a look at good strategy options for utilizing both audience and content targeting as part of your display network strategy. So first, separate your campaigns into different ad groups with unique segmented targeting. So similar to how we would structure a search campaign into segmented ad groups that each have specific keywords within. Again, we don't want to throw every single keyword into just one ad group on a search campaign. We don't want to do the same thing over on a display network campaign. So we should be looking at separating campaigns into multiple ad groups and having each of those ad groups only be targeting one particular targeting option. So for instance, if we're looking at some top of funnel audiences, we could be looking at all three of the different content options with placements, topics, and display network keywords. And we could also be looking at some affinity and in-market audiences. And so even though in-market also can imply some purchase intent to it, Google has a lot of options for us that are available that we could be targeting a very broad in-market audience, as opposed to honing in onto something a little bit more niche, or utilizing something like a custom audience. So there is a possibility that your in-market audience, depending on what level you've selected, could be something slightly more top of funnel. If we're then going down to the mid-funnel types of audiences, again, in-market tends to fall under that top of funnel to mid-funnel. Remarketing users, because they've previously engaged with you, can often be thought of as more of a mid-funnel audience. And so for these, we'd want to both segment them out from each other and from some of those top of funnel audiences. And relating things back to bidding, how we looked at top of funnel, mid funnel, and bottom of funnel, I'd recommend especially if you're using a click-based bidding strategy, using a slightly higher bid on these mid-funnel audiences to top a funnel, because they've already exhibited behaviors that tend to be a little bit more further down the sales cycle. Then finally, for that bottom of funnel users, we'll focus on remarketing and customer match. Again, when I mentioned under remarketing that you can create a list based off of website visitors, someone who's visited multiple pages on your website or have visited product or pricing pages on your website may be something more, or is likely to be someone more valuable than just anyone who's been on your site or simply read a blog on your site. They're exhibiting some of those different behaviors. Segment those out into another list and focus on some of that bottom of funnel traffic as opposed to just, again, anyone who may have been on your website. Customer match is also going to be something almost always bottom of funnel, since A, they likely haven't made a purchase on your site, but you have their contact info, you have their lead info, and so they've already, again, exhibited that amount of behavior that they've been willing to give you that lead info. So you should be segmenting out all of these different targeting options into their own respective ad groups. Second, monitor where your ads are showing and consider excluding placements based on that campaign and ad group performance. And so Susie described earlier how we can utilize placement targeting to show our ads on specific types of content. Because the display network doesn't utilize search keywords, it utilizes placements. Our ads have the ability to show wherever our users are based on audience targeting or on the content that we're trying to target. So instead of the search terms report that we'd see in Google, we have the where ads showed report. This will let us know where all of our impressions are coming from, where our clicks are coming from, and other key performance indicators and metrics for our campaign. And depending on how some of our placements are performing, we may be seeing that we're placing on apps or websites that are yielding a lot of spend, but maybe not necessarily leading to conversions. In the screenshot that you're seeing on screen, look at some of those top placements. This is someone who is showing a lot of impressions over on dating sites. Depending on what we're offering, these placements may not necessarily be where we want our ads to be seen, but yeah, it's yielding a high click-through rate without leading to good results. Something we could do here is exclude any of these placements, either any one or multiple placements at either the ad group or the campaign level. This is something that, like search terms, give your campaign a little bit of time, monitor the performance, and potentially look to filter out some traffic moving forward. Third, consider narrowing your audience by utilizing both audience targeting and content targeting simultaneously. So this is a slightly more advanced strategy since it's taking two different types of targeting options and putting them together. But it is something that, especially in lower budgets, can really let you hone in on a particular audience. Utilizing both audience targeting as well as content targeting has the potential to limit your impressions depending on how restrictive that you've gotten, but it does allow you to serve ads to an incredibly relevant audience, since it's both users who've displayed different signals that you're intentionally trying to target, while also browsing content that you've specifically selected to target as well. So again, this is very useful for when you are trying to hone in on a very particular audience, and also when you have a limited budget and want to ensure that you're hitting the best qualified audience. Cool. So we've covered setting up your campaign and we've covered targeting. Let's dive into the two basic ad formats that you could be utilizing on the Google Display Network. So first, we'll get into responsive display ads. These allow for both text and images to be used as part of your ad copy. These responsive display ads utilize machine learning by Google in order to deliver the most optimized combination of the text and images that you've provided. This saves advertisers a ton of time as it delivers thousands of different possible combinations without you needing to go through and manually create all of these ads at specific ad sizes. You provide the different options, and Google will automatically match up an ad depending on what the available ad placement size is on the site or app that your audience is browsing. And for a responsive display ad, you have a lot of variety. For the headlines, you have the option to utilize anywhere from 1 to 5 30-character short headlines. With a responsive display ad, which is unique to responsive display ads as opposed to text ads, you also have a long headline that could be up to 90 characters as well. Along with having multiple options for shorter headlines, a responsive display ad also allows for from 1 to 5 90-character descriptions. So both those short headlines and descriptions, they're very similar to the maximum ad copy length for text ads. So a good way to start your first responsive display ads is to grab some of your headlines and descriptions that you're already using over on your search campaigns. For your images, you have both images and logos that can be used as part of that responsive display ad. You can have anywhere from 1 to 15 different images, as well as at least one logo that's used as well. You can provide Google the minimum or the maximum, and again, they'll come up with all of these different combinations, give you previews of what your responsive display ad would look like, and then you can move forward from there.
All right, so along with the popular responsive display ads, we also have the option of single image ads, or in other words, simply just uploading ready-made image ads that you may have already created outside of Google. You can first create these by clicking the blue plus in the ads section of your selected ad group and then choosing upload display ads option instead of the responsive option. Once you're in there, you simply just choose or drag which ad file you'd like to upload from your device. Then the last step is to paste in your landing page URL, just like with any other ad creation process. If you run into issues uploading or are unsure of what format is best for your ad to be uploaded in, don't forget that Google puts this handy supported sizes and formats resource to double check that you're following the correct guidelines there. Single image ads are quick and easy because if you already have the image with text ready to go, you can just go ahead and upload it, saving you time. All right, guys, we made it. We're at the final section, key takeaways. If there's anything that we want you guys to walk away with today, here they are. It's kind of our main final points here. So the first one that we want to make sure that you always remember and keep in mind is that your display campaign metrics may be very different from search, and that's okay. The click-through rate might be a little bit lower, the impressions might be a little bit higher. Just bear in mind that it functions and acts a little bit differently from search. It's a little bit more passive. You know, we're not just getting those people actively looking for you, we're following them around and showing them when they're not necessarily looking for you. So that's going to yield different results.
And again, going off that different is better, the display network is a vital tool in engaging with your customers throughout that buying journey, using those different channels. Again, search displays very clear intent. And because of that, as Susie described, those metrics tend to be a little bit higher. Even though these metrics are going to be lower, it allows us to kind of fill the gaps when users aren't actively typing in keywords, re-engaging and staying top of mind, even in between those searches.
Yeah, and going off that for point 3, just keep in mind targeting. As Kyle also mentioned, you can kind of leverage your targeting to access people at different levels of the marketing funnel, whether they're more top of funnel or bottom of funnel. Don't be afraid when you're setting up display to take a step back, take a second, and give some in-depth consideration to both who you want to show to and where you want to show.
Definitely, guys. Don't be afraid when you're moving forward with creating some of your display campaigns. Be creative, be adventurous, be bold. There is rich visuals that you're putting in front of your users that can get them to click on your ads and engage with your business. And because of the low cost per click associated with display network clicks as opposed to search, you have the option to try out some new things as well without worrying about breaking the bank too quickly.
Wow, Susie and Kyle, thank you so much. Y'all gave us a lot to think about. Guys, if you're feeling inspired or maybe even a little overwhelmed and want to talk to one of our experts, I'm about to show a pop-up on your screen for a free digital marketing consultation to see how we can help your business grow. Just click yes, and we'll have someone reach out to you for that. And in the meantime, let's get to the Q&A portion. Here is our first question. Guys, what are some best practices for the creatives and ad copy for display ads?
Kyle,
Yeah,
do you want to take that? Yeah.
Yeah, I can start off with this one. So as I kind of quickly mentioned during the ad creation process, your max character limit for the short headlines and the descriptions are the same character limits for your text ad headlines and descriptions. So if you are not sure about what you're looking to do for ad copy and aren't sure about coming up with something new, get inspired from what you're already currently seeing on your search campaigns. Review your ads performance on search and see which ads are leading to the best click-through rates and conversion rates so far, and try that out over on some of your display campaigns that is trying to match up to similar targeting. Additionally, I would recommend going above and beyond just the minimum that's required to create a responsive display ad. Definitely test some things out. Google will provide performance indicators if you've included multiple images and multiple headlines and descriptions. And so after getting things started, letting Google mix and match and provide all of these different options, you'll be able to review which combinations are showing most frequently and which ones are performing better than others. So I would definitely recommend providing a multitude of options, even within any one particular ad group.
Great. Here's another question. Have you noticed decreased CPA on search campaigns when running the display campaign as a result of increased brand awareness?
I personally have. The account CPA I have noticed can either remain similar or decrease, but the search campaigns are often seeing a positive change in cost per conversion because it's helping generate it's generating brand awareness. It's helping users stay engaged with your service and your business. I definitely see on branded search campaigns both increased volume in conversions, increased volume in clicks, and an improvement in CPA. It's not an every single time, but yes, I think overall I do tend to see that positive impact more than negative.
Great. During a routine display audit in Google Ads, what are some top key metrics you measure and monitor each time?
I can take this one if you want, Kyle.
Sure.
Yeah, what I would normally look at, if say you get your first display campaign up and running, it's going, and now you're like, all right, is this working? Is this not? I would pay attention. While the click-through rate would be low, make sure that you're not just showing a ton and not pulling in clicks. You want to make sure that you're reaching a meaningful audience. So if you're seeing a ton of impressions with low results otherwise, that means that your display campaign might not be quite restricted enough. So I would definitely at least start there and just make sure that you're pulling in clicks and conversions that are relative to the amount of impressions. Of course, impressions are going to be super high, but if they're crazy high and you have barely any clicks and barely any conversions, that would be a red flag to me. So I would normally start with those metrics. I don't know if that necessarily helped to answer the question. Feel free to jump in, Kyle.
Yeah, and similarly, I wanted to highlight that where ad showed section because that's a good tool to use to see, hey, here's our audience targeting or here's our placement targeting. How have the ads actually been performing on specifics? And so WordStream has a blog on benchmarks for search and display that our team utilizes very frequently. And I like to look at that benchmark as kind of like the middle of a range. Anything that's an overly high click-through rate or overly low click-through rate, as Susie was saying, things getting a lot of impressions but not driving clicks. I also take a look at things that are overly high as well, because that could indicate that, especially for some mobile apps, the ad placement just may not be a good placement, especially if we're not seeing it directly lead to conversions.
Yeah,
again,
or
go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. I was just going to say, in other words, just irrelevant clicks. Like
Mhm.
those types of apps can just lead to accidental or irrelevant clicks.
Yep. And because of how display network campaigns are attributed for conversions, if someone were to click on our display ad and then later click on a search ad and convert, as of now, the display network click would not get credit for that conversion, even if we're using something different than a last click attribution. So a lot of times you do have to go above and beyond just how is the conversions looking for display, because we just might be seeing the increase in conversions coming off of search campaigns.
Great, thank you guys. We got a lot of questions about budget. Is there a recommended monthly minimum budget that you guys would share?
I would say, depending on targeting, minimum $5 to $10 a day daily budget. Trying to get $100 per month on display can be spent incredibly quickly. I would definitely recommend a little bit higher than that. So $5 to $10 per day is usually a good starting point, especially if you're using a more restrictive targeting option, such as like a small remarketing list. Susie covered a lot of the content side of things. That's going to be a more broad type of targeting. So if you're looking to do that, it's more top of funnel. It may not necessarily be audience focused, and so you would likely need a slightly higher budget in order to accommodate that large volume of clicks.
Great. We also got a lot of questions about how you can determine what websites your display ads show or exclude. Is there a way to do that?
No, I know that was going back into, as far as seeing where they have shown so far, that goes back tying into what Kyle had showed us with looking at where ads showed in the placements section of that. As far as when you're choosing your placements for what I had talked about with managed placement targeting, you would just have to paste in the URL and add that in. And it would, of course, have to be part of the display network. I'm not sure if that answers the question. Kyle, I don't know if you want to jump in on that.
Yeah, not every website is going to have eligible ad placements. We can't just simply go to targeted placements, add in a competitor's website, and just assume our ads are going to show on there.
Right.
It's more common that apps and like news sites are going to have a lot of ad placements. When you're going through and doing a search for websites or apps, Google will provide an estimated volume of eligible impressions. So that could be a good guide to whether or not you should select a particular placement when doing a content-based targeting option. It'll give you that kind of rough estimate. So something that is showing as very small estimates maybe could be okay to add, but it may be more effective to add sites that are getting a little bit higher traffic in Google's estimates, so that we are not too limited.
Great. And guys, we got a ton of questions in, so we will have someone follow up with you all, but this is our last question today. Do you recommend using the standard display campaign over smart display campaign?
Oh, this is kind of, I feel like, a telltale debate between each individual Google user. I hear some people for it, some people against. I don't want to voice what I think. Kyle, what do you think?
It's a trade-off. I personally like kind of manually controlling a campaign, but I've definitely seen smart display campaigns work. It all depends on how much data you're providing with Google. A small budget may not necessarily be the best. A brand new campaign may not necessarily be the best. Google's smart display campaigns tend to do well when you've had a decent volume of conversions, and Google has more data to optimize off of. I prefer to start a little bit restrictive and grow from there. Overall, I would say I personally prefer a standard campaign to a smart campaign.
Yeah, now that you said it, Kyle, I'll say it too. I definitely agree with that. Of course, smart campaigns can work well, and it is nice because it is kind of just that set it and forget it in a way because Google kind of takes care of all of that. But I do agree that with the standard, you're going to have a lot more control. So kind of a trade-off there, whether you want more control or.
And a nice balance is creating a standard campaign and then opting into an automated bid strategy, a smart bid strategy based on conversions. Still allows you the ability to exclude certain demographics, placements, etc., while allowing automation to still control your bids based on those specific audiences.
Awesome. Susie and Kyle, thank you so much. And thank you guys for joining us today. As a reminder, we will be sending out the recording and the slides in 24 to 48 hours. So look out for that and hope you have a great day.
Take care, guys.
I think